Author of 20 novels, 17 New York Times bestsellers, over 10 million books in print, and published in over 25 languages. Please welcome Jane Green.
Cheers.
Cheers! If you're someone who has a book in you and you wish to put it out there and you are going beyond the vanity press idea and you are looking to hybrid publish it with an intent to sell, do you set out to write what commercially makes sense, or do you write what's within you to write?
Well, so I have always believed that if you set out to write what you think will be a commercial success, it is likely to fail. When you write the story that is true for you and the story that you need to tell, then you have a much better chance. Having said that, Meredith Wilde decided to write erotica, and it just so happened that that first novel of hers coincided with 50 Shades of Grey. And so what they were able to do was to sort of jump on the 50 Shades bandwagon, starting off with online marketing, but they ended up having huge ads in movie theaters. So every time anybody went to see 50 Shades of Grey, they also got this ad for her book. But the amount of money they spent was huge. And that's the thing, it really does cost, goodwill of other people, creative cleverness. That's only going to take you so far. You're either, you one of two things has to happen, and preferably both. You've got to spend some money, and you have to somehow, your project has to capture the zeitgeist, and that's something that none of us can predict. But it's also where the sort of persistence and hard work has to come in. You for me now, to get a book ready to get on shelves, I probably do 30 passes. In the old days, I'm ashamed to say this, but there have been books that have come out that I didn't even reread once I'd finished them.
And now passes, what does that mean to the uninitiated?
Edits. That means edits. So
that's a third party edit? That's you putting it out to someone editing it?
No.
All right.
So an editor's job, and a good editor will never touch your words. What they will do is send your manuscript back with notes on suggestions. And then it's up to you. And I tend to work with people I really trust. And so if they say something, I'll most of the time, I think they're a genius. I'm too close to see it. Mm-hmm. And so most of the time I think that they're right, and I will then go ahead and change it. Some of the time I think they're really wrong. With my last book, The Friends We Keep, which was the hardcover, it'll be out in softcover this year. When I submitted my original manuscript, part of the notes that my editor sent back were, there's an abortion story. I mean, it's a tiny part of it, but there's a storyline where one of the characters has an abortion. And she wrote back saying, I think in this day and age, it's a really sensitive subject, and I think we should avoid it. And I thought, no, that would not be true for me. I couldn't possibly censor myself in that way. And also I do believe in a woman's right to choose, and there's absolutely no way I would feel worse taking it out than I would having it in. And frankly, if anybody reads this and is offended by it, well, then they probably shouldn't be reading my books, period. And that's okay. They can go off and read things that make them happy. So you don't always agree with your editor, but it's somebody who can really point out, who can take an overview of the book. There are two kinds of editing I've always experienced. There's the sort of big picture editing, where somebody's really seeing what you're trying to say in a way that you don't even realize. And then there's what's called line editing, where somebody, it's like copy editing. They'll go through line by line, point out repetitions, point out grammatical errors, that kind of thing.
I get that you would say write from what there is that you wish to write, and not, in your experience anyway, not go for the commercial hit, but write what you believe there is for you to write. And that's likely to be more successful than trying to aim at being.
Yeah. So I think, as a writer, one of the things that we do as writers is we use our writing to process how we feel about things. Most of us tend to be introverts who can often appear to be extroverts. Nobody believes that I am an introvert, but actually I'm an introvert in the true sense of the word, in that I love people and I can love being around people, and I find it exhausting. So when I need to read my batteries, I retreat. I need to be all by myself, not talking, no stimulus. That's, you know, the true meaning of introversion. My husband, on the other hand, who appears to be much more shy than I am, when he needs recharging, he needs to be around. So he is truly an extrovert. And I can't remember why we're even talking. Oh yeah, the stories we need to tell. We make sense. Joan Didion had that wonderful quote about writing is how we make sense of the world, or words along those lines. And that is very true. So that's why I think it's so important to write the story that you need to tell, because you don't even know, often at the beginning, you're not even aware of the things that you're processing during the writing, and the things that are coming up for you, and the problems you're solving in your own life by writing anything, whether it's fiction or memoir or journaling. It all has the same effect.
So, genre of writing, let's get into that. I know when we've spoken before, you've said about fiction is tough. So where's the genre of writing that you would say, if someone's going to set about writing and they could do it as a memoir, they could do it as a fictional story? I know we've said about write what's there to write, but is there a genre right now that, you know, publishing it would be tough, regardless of your abilities?
I think novels are really hard. I think novels are really hard right now. Publishers are, well, who knows what's going to happen at the end of this? You know, we don't know what the world's going to look like, but I can tell you, certainly in the last year or so, publishers have found themselves gravitating much more towards memoir and nonfiction, creative nonfiction, particularly because you have far more opportunities to publicize. You can do public speaking. The television shows are much more likely to have you on if it's nonfiction, and novels are really, really hard. Also, I think our attention spans are much shorter now. And so I would say, you know, if you truly have the choice, if it's equal, I would go for nonfiction rather than fiction. And in fact, I am writing my first creative nonfiction, which is the first time that I've done this in book form. But of course, I started my career as a journalist, as a feature writer. So this is, in many ways, is just going back to my roots.
And when you say creative nonfiction, what is that?
Now I've got no idea. I just keep hearing the term bandied around, and it feels right for me. I think it's memoir rather than biography. So I think it gives you artistic license.
Right.
I think. I don't know.
I just like the honesty. I don't know. It's what's coming around the corner, it seems.
Yeah.
I'll jump on it.
Yeah.